recall how you got interested in the industry that made you want to become who you are today?
Class clown. That's absolutely, I immediately noticed in grade school you got a lot of attention if you pretended a lot. Like pretending you were hungry, and the ladies in the cafeteria gave you peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And pretending you were tired, and the really pretty kindergarten teacher rubbed your head for you. And the more you pretended, yeah, it was pretty fun. So definitely class clown, but I didn't start theater until college, and then I was just, it wasn't so much about all the attention you got as much as I really enjoyed the work of it.
I started acting in high school and just kind of fell in love with it. I also realized at that time that I was probably not going to be a professional athlete. I think I was about 5'1" and 12 pounds at the time. And the love just grew, and I love acting to this day, and I encourage anyone who has that passion or any passion in the arts to pursue it.
I think that Andy and I had a very similar roots. I did not do sports in high school and needed something to put on my resume to get into college. We started a theater company, and on a whim, just majored in that in college and moved to New York because I didn't want to move to LA. Did a bunch of theater, got into doing voiceovers, got into making little movies, and yeah, it's just sort of a little snowball. So no sports.
I would say I got into filmmaking in general because when I was younger, I always liked to paint and take pictures and do model trains and all kinds of different stuff. And I don't know, it seemed like filmmaking somehow you got to do a lot of different disciplines. You kind of combine a bunch of different fields into one. I think now I like making documentary films because it's a great way to have a conversation with someone or get to know things about people's lives or really anything. Stuff that I might not normally have access to otherwise. It's hard, you wouldn't normally sit down in front of somebody and ask them questions for 2 hours, but you kind of have a great excuse to do that with filmmaking. So it's almost an excuse to find out more about the world or people I might not normally get to meet.
For me, it's all about the theatrical experience of going to the movies and being in the theater. The first film I ever saw when I was like 5 years old was The Cat from Outer Space, the Disney movie, which is like phenomenally good about this flying cat who talks with a collar. And I think Dick Van Dyke's in it, or not that, somebody like Dick Van Dyke. I love sitting down and turning off the lights and sitting with a group of people and going through, sort of a dream that plays out on screen. And so I've sort of always wanted to be doing that, providing that experience for people. In high school, I started watching, some of the great directors. I guess it's debatable, but Stanley Kubrick and Fellini, and those sort of fueled my love of cinema. How many of you are filmmakers or are wanting to be filmmakers? Very cool. What are some of your favorite films? Shout it out. Footloose? Did somebody say Footloose? Oh, you said Fight Club. Oh, they're kind of similar movies. This is something. Yes. What? Born Identity. Oh, you're an action guy, huh? Awesome. Why Edward Scissorhands? That's a cool. Everything except his Planet of the Apes. That was awful. No, he's a great director, but that was awful. We'll clearly have to talk about that.
Rubber.
Say?
Rubber.
Rubber?
Yes.
Rubber! Oh, what about the homicidal tire?
Correct.
I haven't seen it yet, but I hear it's awesome.
It is hilarious.
I want to see it. It's this experience where we talk about movies and share them and generate a response. That's why I work in film. That's what I love.
Well, do any of you have questions for these guys? Go for it.
I'm gonna say comedy. I have a deep respect for really moving, gritty stuff, but I don't have a talent for that. And who doesn't like to laugh, right?
My favorite genre to watch is French and Italian cinema from the 50s and 60s. All right! Got a neo-realist in the house. Yeah, boy! Not bad. Wait, all right. There you go. My favorite genre to work in is, I don't care. Anything that pays the bills, I guess.
I don't know. I don't think I can pick a genre. I like stuff that kind of plays with the convention genres. I don't know, comic book stuff, things like that. And I like films that are hard to put into a genre.
It's a great question. It's really tough for me to answer that. I think as an actor, at least recently, I've really enjoyed working on different films and theater that are based on true stories. And I've had the opportunity to play a lot of great men like Bobby Kennedy and Abby Hoffman that you might know, and a few others that I consider great, like Leonard Weinglass and Bob Nolan, who you don't know. And in terms of watching, I guess stuff like Hitchcock and Capra.
I love hear what you said because I love movies, just love anything. But I guess my biggest fondness is something you can turn on a Saturday afternoon and you're like, oh yeah, Shaun of the Dead's on. Or Evil Dead, or Army of Darkness. So movies that are seem stupid, but they're subtly smart, like Shaun of the Dead and movies like that. I love a Saturday afternoon movie, just lay on the couch and it's a blast. Yes, sir, your hand's up. Yes.
By the way, Shaun of the Dead, awesome movie. Hot Fuzz, also awesome.
Thank you.
Have you seen Attack of the Block? Dude, everyone in this room should see it immediately.
Yes, Attack of the Block.
It's a British independent film about aliens that invade the inner city and these tough kids who have to kind of fix it, and it's awesome. It's like Shaun of the Dead.
He's one of the Shaun of the Dead producers, I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, that's a great movie. Yes, it's going to be a great movie. I haven't seen it yet. Hot Fuzz? She Hot Fuzz?
That kid's
It is awesome!
Yeah, I thought of best friend.
What's your least favorite movie of all time?
Titanic.
Titanic 2.
I don't have a least favorite film. I think that, no, I really don't. And one of the things I love about film festivals is that I think that everyone who makes a film should have the opportunity at least once to sit in a theater with at least one person who didn't work on the film and watch the film, even if it's horrible. And especially if you guys are young filmmakers, I think it's so important to go out and make your first film, even if it's 2 minutes long and you find one opportunity to show it, because you're going to learn so much from that experience. So I'll keep working on my least favorite. I won't stop out.
Great.
I walked out of The Accidental Tourist, but I was 12 when I saw it, so I think it just didn't really land.
I'm not sure what my least favorite film is. I'll probably catch some flack for this. Someone took me to see Horrible Bosses a few weeks ago, and I thought that was terrible. So that's my most recent.
The worst movie I've ever seen is called The Item. I don't think it ever got distribution. I saw it at Sundance in 98 or something. And it was about this psychic worm that scientists, that thugs kidnapped from a group of scientists in the desert, and then it destroys their lives, which I know sounds like the best premise ever. But somehow they managed to make the most just brutally awful movie I'd ever seen.
What was the pivotal point in your life that made you actually start to really get into filmmaking, making movies regularly?
The pivotal point in my life that got me making movies was in high school. I saw 2001, Stanley Kubrick movie 2001, and blew my mind, and I hadn't put down a camcorder since then.
I think there were maybe two points. One was actually skipping school in high school and going to see Pulp Fiction. At the time I hadn't seen any of the films he was referencing or any. I'd never seen anything like it. It definitely made me realize films could be something other than what I imagined they could be at that point. And then I don't know, just daydreaming in college one day, and I don't know where it came from, but the idea to make films sort of popped in my brain. And I used to start things a lot at that point in my life and not get very far with them. And somehow it's like 14, 15 years later, and I'm still doing it, so I guess it made sense.
I got into making movies just to create opportunities for myself as an actor. I think I'm in a very fuzzy sort of place casting-wise. Technically, I should be playing young mom, but I don't look old enough to play everyone's mother. And my sensibility doesn't really lean toward that, so I don't want to hop on the there aren't enough roles for women, because I think you need to make your own opportunities, and that's what I started doing. That's how I started making movies.
I'll hop on there aren't enough roles for women bandwagon, because there are, and the young men and women that are here that are writers, write those stories because we need them. We need more of them. I think that the turning point for me, and it started for me with acting, which is what I do professionally most of the time, although I do produce and I have directed and taught. But the turning point was I went to tennis camp one summer when I was 15 years old, and there were 9-year-old girls there who were better than I was. And I think it was clear to me at that point that professional tennis was not going to be my future. And I went back to school for my junior year of high school and just kind of very quickly realized that what I was enjoying as an actor was something that I actually really deeply loved and wanted to make that my career.
Are there any really this flat out theater geeks in here? Any theater group? Anybody daring enough to put their hands up? No. This would mean nothing. That I wanted to be an actor when I read all the writings of Konstantin Stanislavski. And I wanted to be a creator when I saw Peter Brook's The Mahabharata. If you're any kind of creator or theater or even filmmaker or love theater, watch Peter Brook's The Mahabharata. There it is. Just 10 hours doing it. It's awesome. Yeah.
I think that's a question for you.
The question was, when we were making Napoleon, did we know it was going to be a hit? And frankly, no. We told our investor it would be, but we didn't actually know. And we kind of dug, we're lucky that it was, because we sort of were digging holes for ourselves, because when we were asking for favors, to borrow people's houses, things like that, they'd say, well, what are you going to do with the movie? And we'd say, oh, well, we're going to take it to Sundance and sell it, and then it'll be in theaters everywhere. And they'd be like, oh, okay, and yeah, you can shoot here, or whatever. And but we just got fortunate because we thought we were lying, but it turned out we were truthful people. But I think that for anyone making film or theater, or probably any artistic work, there is a moment where you're like halfway into it, or even more, where you suddenly realize that it's sort of a different creature than you thought it was going to be. And your expectations are rarely your expectations for work come to be exactly what that work is. It tends to kind of take on a life of its own. I think it's probably especially true in film because you have such a large cast and such a large crew, and everyone is collaborating and building something. And so it starts to take on its own life, and you have no control over it, for good or for bad. If it's good, you can say you knew it would be the whole time, and then if it's bad, you can blame everyone else that screwed up your good ideas. Go ahead. Yeah.
Just for saving me a trip to IMDb, did you guys also work on Pixel vs. Mario?
I did not.
I did not either.
Did anyone here?
No.
No, I'm just
That was a very lazy question. Can't you get a phone app? An app? There's got to be an app on your phone. Go ahead. Well, I didn't come up with that idea. Jared Hess, the writer-director, grew up with a family llama as a pet. And so that was actually, the llama's name was Dolly Llama. And that was the llama featured in the film.
BFA and a BFA in Theater Arts Education, and that's as far as I went in school, is college, yes.
I was a theater major at Northwestern University.
Theater major at UMass Amherst.
I was a film, they didn't have a film department at the college I went to, it's University of Florida, and I sort of made my own weird thing in the English department, and then I went to Cal Arts, which is in Los Angeles, for graduate school for film.
It's a great school. I got my BA in film studies and my master's in motion picture producing from USC.
So what were your first video production jobs after school? Or just your first job in the video world after getting out of college?
I think the question is what our first TV or film or video jobs were. While I was at Northwestern, I did a little role on a TV movie called Welcome Home, Bobby. That was my first real job in TV and film. And then when I moved to Los Angeles, I did a couple guest spots on a couple of TV series like Balkan Cross and Life Goes On, and then I was a series regular on an NBC show called The Finale Boys. So those are most of my first TV jobs.
I was Santa Claus in a motorcycle commercial in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Very thin Santa Claus. I do better now.
I was a bartender. I was a bartender for a long time. But my first, I guess, sort of paid job, maybe not my first, but probably my most interesting, was I'm the voice of a talking remote control called the Control Your Man, where a wife can point it at her husband, and it says things like, pick up your socks, or do something pretty. That sounds so powerful. My voice was like, pick up your sock.
I worked as a production assistant a little bit in New York City on some crappy TV shows that I can't remember the names of. And then my first real job was actually out here in Colorado at Basalt. I worked for a woman who directed a film for Discovery Channel, a human pet Bond.
It's an interesting film.
It's called Pet
My first job after school was as a junior product placement officer. Product placement is when, like in TV or film, when somebody's drinking like Coors, the Coors company has paid someone to go out and try to get them to use their product on screen as a form of advertising. And so we had, I worked at a company called Hero Product Placement, and we had a bunch of clients that had us on retainer to go out and try to pimp their products to production designers or to producers to try to get them to used on screen. So if you ever see the John Lovitz film Bad Advice, I think Charlie Sheen's in it too, I put the FTD flowers that are in that movie in that movie. Hey, I'm freaking this. Yeah, I don't want to prove to say
working professionals and also fans of cinema. Do you find it difficult to disassociate when you're watching a movie and not think about it technically? Be able to get lost in it?
Great question.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It was, as professionals in the industry, is it hard for us to watch it without criticizing it, with critiquing it?
Yeah, get lost in the film.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and maybe that's why I like Shaun of the Dead. I just gotta appreciate. Okay, I'm gonna be a wacko. I got two things that drive me absolutely crazy in movies because I'm a live theater person. I actually started counting all the movies and television shows where they pretend to drink out of a coffee cup. You cannot. I'm gonna ruin it for you. You're gonna hate me. My name's Nick Turner. You're gonna hate me because now you're never gonna be able to watch a movie without noticing how fake. It's horrible. They're completely empty. The worst one is, anybody see The Devil Wears Prada? Okay, she comes in the door with her arms full of packages and a tray full of Starbucks, and she's like fighting in the door like this with 4 Starbucks cups. 1 Starbucks cup drenches you. Are you kidding me? Okay, sorry. That drives me crazy. Is the empty coffee cup. So yes, that ruins movies for me. Obviously.
I love going to the movies, and I kind of naturally turn that off. So if I do notice it, it's glaring. The first time that I watch a film. And then a lot of times I'll think about it afterwards, and I'll be like, oh, I can't believe they did that. But during an actual viewing, I love being taken to wherever the story's supposed to take me. So I'm actually a pretty easy audience for that. And for theater and TV as well. But if it's bad, if it takes me out, it's bad.
I find that I like to look for when you can see the boom in films. And I didn't really do that. When I was in college, friends would say, oh, you're an actor, can you not watch a movie without kind of the same question? And I was like, no, that doesn't faze me at all. I do like to lose myself in that. But when I started producing stuff and when I started working more behind the scenes and putting the whole thing together, there are things that, and especially in indie films where you know that there's not a major budget, you're like, how did they pull that off? How many favors did they call in to get that location, or how did they manage to? And I wouldn't say that it pulls me out of the enjoyment of it, but it's sort of more like a running list of well, that's a great idea. Oh, I can do something like that.
I think for the most part, I don't have trouble sort of getting sucked into movies and just enjoying them. I think if they're not good, sometimes I will just have something to do while I'm watching them, kind of analyze them or maybe deconstruct things about them. Also, sometimes if I'm at a stage in one of my own projects, like right now, I'm thinking about putting music into a film I'm working on, and so I'll sometimes maybe notice when I'm watching other films, like how they use music or when music cues come in, things like that. But for the most part, it's pretty easy to get sort of sucked into the universe.
No.
Coffee cups.
You always hear to get work in the arts, it's who you know that counts. What's your reaction there?
In live theater, which you find when you've been doing it long enough, where it is true, but mainly it's true because you've built a relationship. It's not really who you know that counts; it's the relationship. Because you may know someone who hates you, and or they don't like you. So it's really it's who you know that counts, that you really have a good relationship with and have done a good job for. So at the end of the day, you may know somebody and you're a rotten actor or do a terrible job. It's not going to help you. If you're a great actor and a hard worker and you can count on them, I'll always look to them to do a show. I'm at the point where I was until recently where I'd rather just cast a show without auditions.
I think Nick hit on a lot of it. I do think that what we do is a lot about relationships, but you build those relationships over time. So they can work to your benefit if you're a part of a team and you're talented and you're a hard worker, and they can work against you too, and they can work against you for a long time. And make a mistake young in terms of attitude or something along those lines, where somebody's just not going to want to work with you for a long time. So yes, sometimes it's It's based on who you know in terms of people get breaks because, you know, they're so-and-so's child and it might be an easier path for them. But for most of us, it is about, you know, creating those relationships and building that path.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I don't actually know what the answer to the question is. You know, I know a fair amount of people, and sometimes that helps me and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I think really more knowing who you are and knowing how you work and really establishing your kind of work ethic and that, I think you can really build your own reputation as someone who's great to work with.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that other than, you know, when I was just starting out, I didn't know anybody, and so maybe that's why I sort of developed people call it the DIY approach, where I taught myself how to shoot and how to edit and how to do everything. So, you know, I can get people to help, great. I can always do it myself and not have to rely on things like that.
Agreeing with everything everybody said, I think it is often more important who you know than how good your script is or how much money you have. And that is, I guess, can be an unfortunate thing. And there's either two things, you know, there's two things you can do about it. You can either sit at home and complain about how unfair it is that you don't know the right people, or you can get your ass out of the house and you can go meet people and network and shake hands and get to know people. Because it is a business of relationships. That's what basically everybody's saying is, yeah, it's not fair. You have to go do it.
I do a lot of voiceovers for TV commercials, and I've been voice recognized, but other than that, no. It's charming. I like it.
It has happened to me occasionally over the years. I've been on some projects that were at the time high profile, but usually the people who recognize me are like my family. Sometimes.
At least your family sees your stuff. That's another thing. Oh, that's a cool question, and I never would have answered it. But little kids, especially, they definitely associate you with what you played. So I remember one time I played Scrooge, and this girl saw me in the store like months later, and she was staring at me and she said, "You were Scrooge." I'm like, "What? How did you even figure that up?" And then she kicked me.
No one ever recognized
Me either. In fact, I've struggled with that my entire life. In fact, I've noticed that the more attractive a woman is, the less likely she is to notice me. Yeah, I don't know. I'm working on it, though.
Amen.
I mean, I'm not actually. I'm married, so I didn't want to give the wrong impression. Actually, don't tell my wife what I said, because it could be misconstrued. I'm not working.
Those who have worked under directors, can you talk about inspiring experiences you had and the technique that they use to direct?
The question is, for those of us who work with directors, talk about their inspiring techniques. I've been fortunate to work with some great directors both in theater, television, and film. One director I was fortunate to work with very early in my career is a man named James Burrows. James Burrows is probably the Will and Grace, Cheers. When you watch television sitcoms at all, he probably directed the pilot. His father was Abe Burrows, who was an incredible comedy writer, decades and decades and decades ago. But he did one thing where we were filming the pilot of our TV series, and one of the characters was sitting at the piano, and the character was very upset because his fiancée had just broke up with him. And James, who's also musically inclined, he looked and there's a piano, and the guy's sitting at the piano, so there has to be something that's funny at the piano. And he didn't say a word, he just walked up to the piano and looked at Christopher Maloney, who was the actor, and he just went, bum, 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 and walked away. So that's what Chris did in the pilot, was what James had just showed him without even saying a word. So sometimes less is more.
For me, as far as directors, I wouldn't say that anyone I've worked with follows a specific acting technique per se, but there's always a lot of improvisation, which I really enjoy, and it really solidifies the collaboration in a way where, everyone feels responsibility for the piece because they're part of the creation of it. As far as direction for commercial work and voiceovers in particular, I've had really great directors and I've had really, really poor directors. A great director is someone who gets you there in as few takes as possible, using as few words as possible, and you just sort of get it. And in that regard, often a line reading is the way to go about that, and some actors get really touchy, like, don't tell me how to say it, I'll get there myself. But when you're renting a studio for $800 an hour, everyone wants to get there. Bad directors say, that was good, but maybe make it a little warmer. So you do it, what do you think is a little warmer? Yeah, maybe a little warmer. Take 14, just warm it up a little bit. So it's more about finding a common ground with the actual language.
I actually haven't seen a lot of directors work with actors, but a lot of people say casting is like 90% of the deal, and I would tend to agree with that. You have to pick the right person, and there's not a whole lot of work after that, I think.
Why are we taping this? Is it for the internet?
No. Is it?
It is.
Okay.
All right. I was working on a film, and I won't say the name of the film with the director, and I won't say the name of the director. It was a complete moron. And he was talking to our lead actress, that I wasn't the lead actress, and the lead actress was asking about motivation for a line and scene. And the director was like, I want the audience to make up their own mind. And the actress said, well, yeah, okay, fair enough. But, I need to play it a certain way, so I have to make a certain choice. So what is my character thinking? And the director goes, yeah, I want the audience to decide what your character's thinking. And she's like, okay. Now, they probably will at home when they watch it. But for me, for right now, I have to decide which way to say it, so I have to know what I'm thinking. And the director goes, no, just be vague. Just be vague. And turned around and walked back to the monitor. And the actress she didn't think the conversation was over, but the director just walked off. And she turned to the cast and crew and announced, this director has no idea what he's doing. She made the general announcement. And we were all sort of looking at each other like, oh, okay. And that was it for her working relationship with that director. And that inspired me to, listen to actors and see what they need and talk to them about it.
What was the most recent film you worked on?
The most recent film that I worked on were two, The Chicago 8 and a film called Fort McCoy, which is playing this evening here.
I just made an animation involving zombies. Watch for this coming soon.
I wrote and shot a short called Mommy Wars that is a comedy about the part of Brooklyn that I live in has a lot of women, and they push really large strollers, and it's very difficult to sort of navigate the world with them. So the film is a little short about a battle on the playground.
I think the last thing that I worked on for someone else, I helped shoot a film called The Last Buffalo Hunt about a
how do you guys balance your originality, whether it be directing, acting, voice acting, with the need for inspiration from past films that you've seen?
I was just reading something about that recently. The adage that there isn't anything original is misleading, because when I write scripts, it always comes back down to just the core things that we all share as human beings. Those don't change. It isn't that there isn't anything original, it's just that what we find important doesn't change. So then it's just finding your take on that, your take on love, and your point of view on envy or rage or whatever it is, and it becomes original because it comes from your sensibility and your heart. So when I try to describe my work, it's always like, oh, this is I worked with this, I had a great idea, and at the end of the day you say, it's about love. Oh, darn it. Okay, so, but that's what we find important. I don't know if that helps.
No, I like your answer, and the only thing I can add as an actor is, I don't think I can add anything, but if it's me acting the role, then if I am honestly responding to the person with whom I'm in the scene, then it's original in the sense that it's never been done before, and every night's going to be different if it's a run that's 6 months, because there's some element that's different, and I'm just going to honestly respond to what's outside of me. If I'm just going to make a choice and stick with it, then there's nothing original about it. And I think that goes for again, I bring it back to the audience because there's so many young filmmakers here. If you're writing, write from what you know, because your story's original. Nobody else has had your experience as a human being on this planet. And while it might resemble something else, it is original.
This question really hits home with me because I didn't really start writing until about 3 or 4 years ago. And it was for pretty much the reason that your question gets at. I kind of stopped myself because someone had already done it. Someone already told that story. I'm never going to do it as good as someone else has done it. And that was a big hurdle for me to just sort of mentally and emotionally get over and say, yeah, everyone's done everything. There aren't original ideas, but there are original perspectives, and everyone's story is valid, and everyone who wants to tell a story has a platform to tell a story.
I think, whatever field you're in, it's important to have a sense of the history of that field. So, for me, I obviously important to have some understanding of the history of cinema and have seen a bunch of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think really you need to go out in the world and experience things and then try to be honest about how you present them. So, I think you want to balance it. You don't want to just, I think, although there are directors I like who seem like all they do is watch movies all the time and just reference movies, but for me personally, it's like, I watch a certain amount of stuff just to have a sense of what's been done, try not to, like you say, get bogged down in that, and just go out and live and, and do things as personally as I can. Hopefully they come out some original.
I have nothing really to add. That's all true.
When you're making documentaries, how do you go about finding people to document? And then if it's a taboo topic, how do you film it without losing the authenticity of it?
I don't think I've done anything on a taboo topic yet. Hopefully I will at some point. But generally, I find them they come out of my personal interests. So they come from that. Sometimes they're completely active. A film that's going to be shown tomorrow is about a smog check. I don't know if they have that here. It's a guy who checks exhaust emissions in California, and I but sometimes it's like I made a film about model railroading, and when I was younger, I was really interested in model trains, so I went to this model railroad club, and so I don't know, it's just things that are interesting me at the moment, or things I've been interested in the past. I'm interested in work, like the process of how things are made. That film Wood that's showing tomorrow also is about how a tree kind of gets from being a tree to a 2x4 or whatever. But what interested me was not that, was what, you kind of get these products, but you have no sense of who the individual lives that have been touched by this thing. So it's really, that process is an excuse to make portraits of all these guys who work in this sawmill. And so I don't know. I don't know if that quite answered your question, but stuff I'm interested in learning is basically what I do.
I directed a documentary a number of years ago about the old Negro baseball leagues, and with that, I found that if you start talking to somebody, even if you have an idea that it's a taboo subject or something that you think that they might not want to talk about, more often than not, people will open up and they will want to tell you their story. So if it's something that, I don't know if you have something specific in mind, or you think that people will.
Well, the last documentary that I watched was actually about like prostitution, and I was just thinking about like how would they not film that stuff, but like how would they film it without
Getting people in trouble.
How would they film it without getting caught, or without making it fake, or reality TV thing.
So you're talking more about the relationship the filmmaker has with the subject of the film, that kind of? Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's really important. I mean, I like making films about people I might normally have nothing in common with, and that's always really interesting, is to try to see the world through their perspective to some degree. But I think anytime you're making a film about someone and you don't want it to seem like the paparazzi thing or some, I mean, you have to have respect for the people you're making films about, I think that's important. And you have to be upfront with them generally, so they understand how they're participating in it. So, if you were interested in making a film about prostitutes, you have to, in a sense, maybe not become friends with them, but you start a relationship to some extent, talk to them. It's a lot of it's about earning people's trust, and they have to know you're not going to shoot them and turn around and exploit them, or you can really manipulate things through editing, through different parts of the filmmaking process, and it's important to when you
Can you add something to it?
Yeah, sure.
That's a great question. For a show we did here based on people's true stories about their first relationships in an adult term, I wanted to interpose real people's stories, so I went down to a bar that a friend of mine was at. You shouldn't do it, you're too young. And you'll be amazed at the if you're sincere in what you want to find out and you go to where they're comfortable, you'll be amazed at what people will tell you. So if you have a sincere purpose and you make them feel comfortable and you go to where their home base is and where they feel comfortable, like you wouldn't want to pull someone in, I wouldn't want to pull them in to an office somewhere to interview them about a childhood thing. I want to go to a park, or I want to go to their house, or I want to where they feel safe. And then they can tell from your sincerity that you really want to know and you really care about what they say, and you'll be amazed at what people will tell you. I think that helped. Oh, sorry. Okay. Does that help? Okay.
What about the digital distribution, how it's changed from theater, for the film, to online, to DVDs, to iTunes? How's that hurt or helped you guys in your careers?
For live theater stuff, I'm amazed at what's accessible to anybody, and these guys are much more qualified to talk about film, but because I could actually make a very nice quality video with a camera that was like not not comparably. There's tons of our live stuff online now because it's just so easy. And people are making, and I have an iPad and I can actually create and edit and add music to something on my iPad. That's ridiculous.
The digital distribution, I mean, the downside, of course, is piracy, which, it drains away billions of dollars of revenue, and even from independent films. I did a really small film called Think Tank that almost no one's heard of. It came out on 11 screens. But the day before it was released in the States, we had a bunch of IMDb reviews from soldiers serving in Iraq, because it had been, downloaded, I guess at the replication house or somewhere. It had been loaded to the net. Pirates had gotten it. Pirates in the Middle East had gotten it. Started burning DVDs of it and selling it in the streets of Baghdad for $1. And so we had reviews from these soldiers, which was nice that they took the time to review it. On the other hand, we lost lots of revenue. It's difficult to calculate how much, because you got to ask yourself how much you would have sold, I guess, in the city of Baghdad. I don't know. It's hard to know how much revenue is lost, because it's an opportunity loss, not an actual monetary loss. But of course, the upside is that there are tremendous gains in terms of digital distribution. Netflix has, in particular, has become this power player. And I think it tends to help independent cinema a lot, because we have a lot more places to go. And, particularly if you're doing a limited theatrical release. So you've got a little movie that's only going to be in a few theaters in New York and LA, or in a couple of other cities. And you do a campaign for that film where you're getting bloggers to write about your film, and you've got a website, and you're doing this stuff that people who live in New York, who don't live in New York and LA, people who live in Fort Collins can see your website or read about you on a blog, but they can't go see the movie. So your PR money has been sort of wasted because you've made impressions on viewers that don't have access. So there's a new model in independent film to have the movie, an independent movie, on on-demand platforms like Time Warner On Demand, or on Netflix, or on other web cinema sites, the same time that it's out in theaters, so that the money you've spent to advertise for the theatrical release simultaneously advertises it on a digital platform for people who aren't going to fly to New York to see it. And I think that's wonderful. I mean, more eyeballs for independent cinema is a good thing for me personally. There's arguments that things like Netflix are eroding the studio's ability to do mid-range movies. And that there's this sort of, like the shrinking middle class of films, where studios are having to make tentpoles, like $100 million, Green Lanterns, or independent movies that are made for like less than $1 million, and that these movies sort of in the middle are kind of dying. Your $40 million movies kind of dying. And I couldn't really speak to that because I don't make movies that big. But as an independent filmmaker, digital distribution is a lifesaver.
Yeah, I don't know much to add to that. A lot more people have seen my last feature because of Netflix and iTunes and all that, which is great. I've made money off of it, but it's also I love the theatrical experience and going to a movie theater, and so it's great that people can see stuff on their computer or at home on their TV. But it's nice to go to see things in the movie theater too.
I think where it's really a good thing, you're next, is for filmmakers like you guys, where you have a readily available place to show your stuff, and maybe you're just showing it to your friends and family, but that you have a place to put it may light a little more fire under your butt to actually make it. So I think it'll be interesting to see when you guys are our age, how it's changed more.
That's good.
We noticed that a lot of films, feature films
question is that he's noticed that a lot of films these days are 3D. Is it a fad? And what are our opinions? I actually don't have a strong opinion on 3D. Like I saw Avatar in 3D and I thought, man, that's kind of cool. Okay.
I agree with you.
I don't have a strong opinion either, but I really, for some reason, like IMAX movies in 3D. And with regular theatrical films, it doesn't do much fun.
I'm an advocate of 3D, which I think rides against the current filmmakers generally, but I believe that as televisions become nicer and higher definition and larger and more accessible to people, that there has to be a reason to go to theaters. I love the theatrical experience. And I think that if everyone just only watched new release movies at home on their couch with their friends, we'd be losing something in the cinema community. We'd be losing something in culture at large. So I'm an advocate of anything that makes the theatrical viewing experience unique and something that you don't get at home or on your iPad or in the other ways that we consume movies. Yeah.
I just saw the movie, the documentary Cave of Forgotten Dreams, and that was in 3D. Except I thought it was pretty cool because it actually used the 3D to kind of tell the story about how the caves looked and stuff like that. So not only with 3D, but with other things. Do you think that in the future there can be other things that will not only enhance the effects, but also the story of film in the future?
Well, there's the question was, will cinema continue to innovate and find new kinds of experiences and new ways to communicate? And I think the answer is yes. I mean, it's hard to envision exactly how or in what form storytelling will take. But I think technology continues to innovate, and we will continue to move into that space. And will that future take the shape of a holographic theatrical experience or a virtual reality theatrical experience? I don't know, just because I'm not a technologist. But I'm certain that cinema will advance technically because it always has.
I could thought on live theater here. 3D and blockbusters, there's always the discussion on, as technology advances, what it's going to do to live theater. Are there any live theater actors? I asked that already, didn't I? You guys have done some acting, haven't you? You all? You should. You're good looking. All of you. Good looking people. Get on stage. Gotta go. I think what it's going to do to live theater is one of these days you're going to walk into a live theater and all there is going to be an empty stage and an actor standing there and it's going to blow your mind. Because you see such massive technological things occur that just sitting down and one actor standing there with just words, it's going to be an amazing experience for you. Trust me.
What's one piece of advice that you wish you had someone tell you when you were starting your career?
The question is, what's one piece of advice that we wish that someone had given us when we were starting our career? I don't know.
Go into a different field. I'm just kidding.
Maybe you're enough. Whatever it is that I think this is kind of what I said earlier in terms of, if you're a writer, but what you bring to your art is unique. And I don't think anybody should ever discourage a young artist. I don't think anyone should discourage an artist at any age. But it's follow your dreams and persevere, because that's the only way that you have a shot at accomplishing it. And if you come to a point where you decide this isn't for me, that should be your decision. It shouldn't be anybody else's.
Else to help you, or you want someone else to do it for you, or you want someone else to make your dreams happen, it's not going to happen because they're thinking about themselves and their dreams. So as you approach it, no one believes in your work in your town as much as you. I think that works.
I actually got a piece of advice when I was a senior in college. An alumni from my school who had been living in New York for a couple of years, he came back and he had started a theater company And I was asking him about that because I wanted to move to New York, and he said, the only thing I can tell you is make your own work. And I didn't quite, I wasn't able to understand what that meant when I was 21 years old. And this is sort of what I talked about earlier about how I just sort of had a block of someone else does it better than I can do it. And yeah, I wish that someone had just sort of been there to translate that to me, to say like, your stories are important, the way you tell your story is unique. And you know what, not everything is gonna be perfect, and it might not be perfect the right time, but work begets work begets work.
I don't know if I'm good at learning things through advice. I think I sort of have to do stuff and screw up and or succeed, or just go through the process, and I learn a lot from that. I know other people are different. For me, that's and so like everyone's basically saying I have to do stuff to have those experiences. And I would also say, like, I always have this impression, wherever you're at in your kind of journey with all this stuff, you always look at someone that's a little farther ahead, and there's kind of a mystical quality about them. And I've always found at every stage I get to, like, no one really knows what they're doing. I mean, maybe there's people that do know what they're doing, but I haven't met them yet. I teach film classes, I kind of don't know what I'm doing. Everyone's trying to figure it out, just like you are. So, I would say, everyone struggles with all this stuff. You never, like, perfect your art. You just keep working at it and getting better. Do it. If you like it, you gotta enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, what's the point? So.
The advice I wish I'd gotten was to pay attention to crew relations. That is to say, like, when you're working on a movie and you're passionate about it, and it's like your baby, and you're ready to do 18-hour days, and you're ready to work 7 days a week, what you don't always realize, because it's so important to you, what you don't always realize is that the guys that you've hired on the crew, this is their job, and they do this for money, and they're punching a time clock, and like they're not ready to do the 18-hour days, and to just be grateful for your crew and to take care of them, do nice things for them, surprise them, maintain morale, because a happy crew works faster, gets better shots, it shows up on film, and it makes the whole environment more creative, and more pleasant environment. And good, yeah, catering. Catering is a really important part of crew relations. Good catering. Not $4 a head. Food.
What's your proudest, film or product, or like your most proudest performance or something? Like something that's just always, like you're just always proud of no matter what that you've done in your career.
For me, it's actually really easy, and it's actually the film that's playing tonight. It's Fort McCoy. And Fort McCoy is based on a true story, and it's my mother-in-law's family. And they're great people. They're amazing, and their story's incredible. And I played, I guess, the great uncle of my wife, and who was a Jewish soldier who fought during World War II, who really never spoke about his experiences, and only spoke about it to his wife throughout his whole life. His whole life, he didn't even tell his kids. So when the script was written and he saw it, we had no idea how he was going to react, and he loved it. He unfortunately passed away before we were able to make the movie. So for me, it was an incredible responsibility, and I think we did a good job of telling his and all of their stories. So but that's what I was proud of.
Without getting too wacky, I have a performing arts school called La Di Da up here, and I started out as an actor, and I really do. I get the proudest of seeing other people do great work. So that kind of told me that I was meant to kind of be a teacher over these years. Even if it's something I've written, I usually get the most excited about someone really getting it in an actor's performance. Yeah, that's good. Cool. Just hit me.
I think, honestly, the thing that I was most proud of, and it maybe is the thing I'm still most proud of, but at the time, I was a actual hotel furniture for a play set in a hotel, nothing can stop us. So that was a big, maybe doesn't hold up, but it felt great at the time.
I think, I don't know, whatever I'm currently working on, I always sort of, by the time I'm through with it, hate it. And, hopefully I'll get past that sort of thing where I mean, I always put more projects that go in phases where I'm like, oh, this is okay, it might not be too bad. Oh, it's the worst, piece of crap, whatever. But then as time passes, I usually look back and I realize like I've worked my hardest on these things, and however they were perceived or whatever they did, I guess, they're all kind of, I don't know if there's one thing I'm more proud of than another, but I know I worked really hard on all of them and did them as well as I could, and so I guess there's some pride there where, like I did my best for better or for worse, but it usually takes a while, a couple of years, for that feeling of, okay, that thing's okay, to sink in. So I guess just have to stick with these projects even if I don't want to toss them. And eventually I'm happy I did them, regardless of whether it turned out.
I'm proud of a little film, a very, very little film that I produced called Coyote that played actually in this festival a few years ago because it was the lowest budget film I've ever done, and the cast of the crew, we just rented one condo, and we all slept on the floor, and we all sort of worked on it, just this total garage, experience, and but we wound up making a significant profit, and we won 7 Best of Fest awards with it, and we traveled all around the world with it, and I'm very proud of the fact that it had so little resources, and it's won more awards than any other film I've ever done, and so I'm proud of that.
Okay, so my question is kind of complicated, but I used to like to make movies by taking pictures from TV shows and putting them to music, like all the countless movies that you can see on YouTube, but recently I've started using an animation program to make movies using the preset animations that were already in there. And so what I'm making right now is going to last actually multiple hours rather than just 3 or 4 minutes. And I found that I liked everything from writing the script, I especially like that, but finding the camera angles and choosing the music and actually making these characters do what's right, and even the video editing. And so what I would like to know is, as someone who doesn't know anything about filmmaking, does that sound closer to the job of a director or a producer or a writer or what?
I think you want to be a writer-director.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it either. Just do what you like doing and have fun, and that stuff will sort itself out.
I would like you to send me your reels when you're done, because I need all of those things all the time.
It's going to be awesome.
I have no doubt that I'm fully in support of this project.
Awesome.
I'm with you.
So, your thoughts on college? Worth it?
Yes. The question is, our thoughts on college, is it worth it? I think that's up to you. I think for me, it was extremely worth it in 2 ways. I was a theater major, and I got a great theater education. But I also got a liberal arts education and studied, a number of other things that I think have helped me as I move forward. I have really strong opinions in terms of going to college as a trade school to be an artist. Like for me, I would never have done that, because I think if I know that I want to be an actor and I'm going to go somewhere and just study acting, I feel like you start to get myopic. And so much of being an artist is about being aware of the world and other people and other disciplines. So I would say learn everything that you can about everything that you can if you want to be an artist.
I agree 100% with that. If you're going to go to school, go to a 4-year school and study anthropology and music, and there's stuff now that at 48, I just started to discover after working with music forever. I can't read music, I can't play an instrument. I'm just discovering the wonder of playing around with music. I wish I would have studied it in college. So think ahead. Be honest with yourself and think ahead a little bit. Like, no, I'm not gonna. I don't want to do that. But think, you know what? Someday I might want to play piano. Do it now. It's really hard to learn how to play piano when you're old. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I guess my specific question is student loans worth it?
They're worth it if you're working. So if you get work out of, and also you're getting relationships in school. So I would be picky about what school you go to, and then you build relationships, and you may get work right out of school to pay for those loans. I think, to be completely frank, in today's society and the economy in the future, you're not going to get a job without a college education. You're just not. Eventually, it's going to be so specialized that someone's going to say, do you have a degree? Let's start there. And you say no, I think you're in trouble in anything you do. Maybe not film or acting. I know actors who haven't got a degree and are very successful, but that's all they're doing. They can't do anything else. I might be wrong. Please, yeah.
Go to school, absolutely. Go to school, stay in school. We talked earlier about how often in film, at least it's who you know can be more important than how good your script is, or how talented you are, or how much money you have. It can be key, and that you begin that networking base in school. Like I call every day of my professional life, I call other people that I went to school with. I've produced 5 of the 8 films I've produced have been for directors I went to school with, either in undergraduate or in graduate school. Like on Friday, on our call, on our drive just from the airport in Denver to here, I was on a conference call with a producing partner of mine that I went to school with, and then with an agent friend of mine who I met when I was in school. Like going to a creative environment where it's like this test laboratory, where you and other people at your level can work together and start building networks of people who, that's where like talents emerge, where you meet the editor the editor who's cutting the film. I'm in post-production now on cut my thesis student film. Now he's a professional editor. I got him for a pretty cheap rate because he's doing me a favor because I'm an old school friend. Like there's nothing about the university. I mean, student loans are, they can be a real burden. But I mean, this is where you get started. This is the laboratory where the industry gets moving. That's great.
Specifically to speak about student loans, I wanted nothing more than to go to NYU for undergraduate. And I got in, and my family couldn't afford it. And I got scholarships, and I got financial aid that would pay for half. And when I was starting college, NYU was just over $25,000 a year. It's now just over $50,000 a year. I went to UMass Amherst, where I paid under 10 and came out with about $10,000 of student loans that I paid off when I was 30. So I would be personally, to me it doesn't matter where you go to undergrad. There can be a lot of pressure to like, oh, I have to be in this big name school. Unless you're going to the Ivy League to do Ivy League things, then I don't think where you go to undergrad matters. I think if you want to pursue graduate school, if you want to pursue postgraduate education, that I think can be that's more important where you choose to go to school. But I do think definitely be in school. It's where you can fail, and there are very few consequences.
I just wanted to say a little bit on the end of that, what you're talking about, that in Colorado Film School, which is in Denver, most of my friends it was just named top 20 film schools in America.
Right, exactly right. You don't
describe your creative processes and like how you get an inspiration and how you turn that into a real life creation?
I guess what she's asking is how we turn inspiration into an actual finished product. My creative process is very convoluted. I wouldn't say it's at all streamlined, and I don't think it's anything that I would recommend to anyone. I am a very sort of, my stuff is very observational, and I have an idea, and I maybe will jot it down and then forget about it forever, and then try and write it and watch The Real Housewives of New Jersey for hours on end and maybe lay on the floor. I have no really set thing, but when I do start to write and it flows, I know that I'm onto something. I can usually, once I really start, finish something fairly quickly.
Yeah, the ideas and inspiration, I don't know where those things come from. Like I've said before, definitely for me, a lot of it has to do with personal interest, things that, why do I get interested in? I have no idea. I got interested in wild mushroom hunting a couple of years ago. I've been wanting to do a film about that. Probably going to do some wild mushroom hunting this weekend. But so that's just bizarre. But then the thing is, then you have to sort of think, all right, well, how do I take this thing that's interesting to me and make it interesting to other people? Or, if you're doing a fiction film, you might have a big idea, but then it's like, how do I structure this so that it works and brings people along through the story? So, and that part can be tedious. So there's the inspiration part, and then there's like a lot of that hard work. And I guess, definitely anytime you get that inspiration to do something or you're interested in something, that's very valuable. Like respect where your brain leads you and where your interests lead you. But then after that, you have to work, and you have to structure things, and you have to do a lot of stuff that hopefully you can figure out how to enjoy that process, but can seem tedious or like your work.
Mr. Fenster, am I correct in saying that you're saying your creative process begins when you take wild mushrooms?
It's not. That is not what I'm saying. I enjoy the culinary aspects of the medicinal aspects, but fair enough.
I prepare the ground. I read a lot. I listen to music that kind of inspires me in that angle. I wrote a musical one time. Every scene or song was inspired by an Elvis Costello song. So I listened to nonstop Elvis Costello, and then I forgot about it and just wrote, and hopefully didn't plagiarize anything. So I like to take a theme and prepare the ground. So read, watch movies, draw, listen to music, and then all that creativity comes out when you work. Go back to what they said. Then you just got to do the work, and all that preparation you did will come out.
I'm primarily an actor, so I don't think they're really actors in the house, so I don't know that it really applies, so I'm just going to pass, and if anybody's interested, we can talk about it.
We have time for 2 more questions. Yes.
Out of all of the films you've made, which one was the most difficult to make?
For McCoy as well, for that.
Mine was the short I'm working on now called Mommy Wars, mostly because it rained on the day we were shooting, which was difficult and also turned out to be a bonus because in New York City, you can't really be an adult on a jungle gym. You can't be an adult unaccompanied by a child in a park, and we were really stealing all the shots. So that was a tough one that really worked out.
I would probably say the one I'm working on right now is a feature film. But I might say that, whatever I happen to be working on at that time always seems kind of like the hardest one. There are always different challenges, I think. This one, I don't know, I can't really go into it. It's too long of a story why it's so difficult. But, I've been working on this thing for a year and a half. And they're all hard if you care about them. It's always tough, but I think it's worth it.
most difficult film I ever made was I made a movie for MTV Films called Beneath, which I recommend you do not see because it is an awful film. And we were plagued by, we were co-financed by Paramount, the predecessor of Paramount Vantage, which was called Paramount Classics, and then MTV Films, which is in a different format than it was back then. It used to be a standalone production entity. They co-produced it. They would fight among themselves about things. Different sets of executives from the studio would fly up. We shot in Vancouver. They would fly up, and there were fights on the set. And one set of executives showed up with a new ending to the movie that they had written. They just issued us pages. And it just became this awful infighting mess and sloppy and terrible and just the worst experience ever. You only have 3 panel members left.
Well, there's only one more question.
Alright, never mind.
What do you do about solving problems while you're filming? Like, say it was raining when you needed a really sunny shot. Like, what do you do?
Creative problem solving just has to be something you have to train yourself to do. You know, I mean, I think that's sort of the key to producing. I guess if you're not a producer, the answer to that question is get a great producer. And if you're a producer, the answer to that question is become a great producer. But you just have to get creative. You have to rewrite the scene so that there is rain in it, or you have to juggle the schedule so that you have time for a reshoot, or just there's just a million different parameters that you have to play around with.
Yeah, I think that's like a big part of the job. You know, it's like something goes wrong every day, and that's like a given. Right? So it's all about figuring out. First, you don't freak out, you know, and you solve the problem. I think half the time when stuff happens, it works out for the better. You know, you get weird creative ideas when those kind of things come up. Also, you know, it's cliche, but you gotta prepare as much as you can. The more you prepare, the more ready you are for weird things that come up. Storyboard stuff, or if you know, rehearse or practice, you know, do whatever the thing, anything you can possibly do beforehand. If you do it, then when weird stuff pops up, you know, you have a fix for it. You know, a lot of, not in the last film I did, but some films I'll storyboard everything. I don't look at the storyboards once I start shooting, but just the fact that I did that, I went through that process, it's there somewhere in your brain. It enables you to improvise. You know, it's like, you know, you're a great musician or whatever. You have all the technical skills, and that allows you to freestyle a little bit.
When it rained on my one-day shoot, my one-day shoot where my DP was not going to be available for another month, and we were changing seasons, I bought the cast and crew a beer and asked them to wait for an hour to see if it cleared up. And one beer later, around the corner, the sun came out, and we went right back to work. So it's a lot. It is definitely being able to pull it out of your butt, think on the fly. It's okay.
One last question.
Who inspires you and why?
Who or what?
No, I need to think of something.
I will go.
That's a great question.
I am fully inspired right now by my environment. I live in New York. I live in a fun little part of Brooklyn that there are colorful characters everywhere doing crazy shit all the time. So I kind of want to share that with everyone. It's this feeling of like, I cannot believe these people. I cannot be the only sane one in this insane world. So I guess it's a feeling of like, everyone come be on my side. So yeah, New York City. Hardest question in the world.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really, I mean, I feel like I've been pretty vague in a lot of answers, and that's a hard one to be specific. I mean, it could be anything. It could be like I don't know if you ever heard of this director, Eric Romer, French New Wave guy. You know, I don't know how I missed him in all these years of doing film stuff, but last year I saw one of his films, and then I saw all his films after that, a lot of them. And like that can be inspiring. Just finding someone who's doing somewhat that I'm doing and just being blown away. I mean, it can come from the person I meet or what my friends are doing or taking a hike or it could be so many different places. Teachers I've had in undergrad and grad school. I mean, there's grad school teachers I have that I think about every day, stuff they said or stuff they've done. So, I don't know. You gotta be open to it too, If you're not open-minded, if you don't give, sometimes they seem like the most boring person you've ever met, and if you give them 20 minutes or something, they might show another side, or, I think being patient with things and I don't know, giving things a chance sometimes is a good way to have things reveal themselves.
It's almost going to sound like a laundry list, I think, because there's so many things out there that can inspire you and that have inspired me. Characters that I play, I've played a bunch of real people, like I mentioned earlier. Anything from an attorney to a soldier have inspired me. I feel really fortunate when I am inspired by someone I'm actually playing because it just infuses the performance with, I don't know what to call it other than love, and I feel like that somehow colors what I'm doing. But teachers, family, stories, so many different people inspire me, and artists inspire me.
I'll go with. Yeah. I'll do that. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Stanley Kubrick. I've already talked about him, but I think Stanley Kubrick's stuff is amazing, and the way he would use shot composition to tell stories. I'm gonna go with Stanley Kubrick. That's the best I can do. Oh, I hear you.
No more talking for you.
First, let's have a round of applause for our panelists. Before we wrap things up here today, NSCS would like to award the High Achiever Award to Mr. Andy Hirsch. So thank you so much for coming out here today. Thank you for your wonderful questions. Thank you to our panelists for being here. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival.
You guys rock!